My heart stopped the night I heard my mother's voice, sharp as a blade, cutting through the thin walls of our old Virginia home. She's not that kind of girl, Clara, and she never will be. I was 16, curled up in my room, clutching a letter I'd written but never dared to send, a letter to Sarah, the girl who made my world tilt. By morning, my mother's words had burned a hole in me, and I knew I'd have to hide who I was, or lose everything. In the small town of Willow Creek, Virginia, where the air smelled of honeysuckle and judgment, Ellie Harper, learned to keep secrets. My mother, Diane, was the town's beacon of virtue. Church on Sundays, potlucks on Fridays, and a smile that hid her iron will. She raised me to be her mirror, straight, proper, destined for a husband and a picket fence. But Sarah, with her wild blonde hair and laugh like summer rain, was my rebellion. We met at 16, in the dusty back row of English class, passing notes that turned into whispers, then glances, then something neither of us could name. By 17, I knew I loved her. By 18, I knew it could destroy me. That summer, the air was thick with tension. Sarah and I stole moments in the park, by the creek, anywhere we could be invisible. Her hand brushing mine felt like a revolution, but my mother's eyes were everywhere. Diane wasn't cruel, not in the way people imagine. She loved me fiercely, her only child, but her love came with rules. "You're meant for better things, Ellie," she'd say, her voice soft but unyielding. Better things meant a life without Sarah, without the truth clawing at my chest. I thought I could keep it buried, but then Aunt Clara came back to town. Clara, my mother's younger sister, was everything Diane wasn't: unruly, outspoken, with a laugh that filled rooms and a past she never discussed. She'd left Willow Creek a decade ago, after some hushed-up scandal my mother refused to explain. Now, at 35, Clara was back, renting a small house on the edge of town, her hair streaked with gray, her eyes carrying stories she wouldn't share. "I'm here to fix things," she told me one evening, her voice low, as if she knew more than she let on. I didn't know then how much she'd unravel. The trouble started at the town's 4th of July picnic. Sarah and I were there, playing our parts, friends, nothing more. We sat on a blanket, her knee brushing mine under the table, a secret spark in the chaos of barbecue smoke and laughter. I caught Clara watching us, her gaze sharp but not unkind. Later, as fireworks lit the sky, she pulled me aside. "You're hiding something, kid," she said, her voice a mix of curiosity and knowing. My stomach dropped. Had she seen the way I looked at Sarah? Did she know? I lied, of course. "Nothing's going on," I mumbled, my face hot. Clara didn't push, but her smile was a warning. She saw through me. That night, I lay awake, replaying her words, wondering if she was an ally or a threat. I didn't know then that Clara's return wasn't random. She had secrets of her own, ones that would collide with mine and change everything. The next week, Sarah and I met at our spot by the creek, hidden by willows. She was nervous, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. "My parents are talking about sending me to a camp," she whispered. "Someplace to fix me." My blood ran cold. Conversion camp. I'd heard rumors about kids being sent away, coming back hollow. Sarah's parents were like my mother, devout, unyielding. They'd found a letter, not unlike mine, tucked under her mattress. "We have to run," she said, her voice breaking. "Or they'll take me."
Run.
The word hit like a gunshot. I was 18, with no money, no car, no plan. But Sarah's eyes, wide and desperate, held me captive. "I can't lose you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. We made a pact that night under the stars, to leave Willow Creek before summer's end. We'd go north, maybe DC, where people like us could disappear into the crowd. It was a dream born of fear, but it felt like hope. The plan took shape in stolen moments. Sarah worked weekends at the diner, saving every tip. I sold my old guitar, the one my dad left me before he died. We had a backpack each, a map, and a promise. But my mother was watching closer now, her question sharper. "Why were you so jumpy, Ellie?" she'd ask, her eyes narrowing. I'd shrug, mumble about school, but the weight of her suspicion was crushing. Clara, too, was circling, asking about Sarah, dropping hints about choices and truth. I didn't trust her, not yet. One night, I overheard Diane and Clara arguing in the kitchen. "You're too soft on her," my mother snapped. "She needs discipline, not your ideas." Clara's voice was low, steady.
"She's not you, Diane."
"Let her be." I froze, my heart pounding. Was Clara defending me? Or was she digging, trying to expose me? I couldn't tell, but the air in our house felt like it was closing in. By late July, Sarah and I had $300 and a bus schedule. We'd leave in 2 weeks, after the town fair. But secrets don't stay buried in Willow Creek. One evening, as I packed my bag, my mother walked into my room, holding the letter, the one I'd written to Sarah, the one I thought I'd hidden. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. "Ellie," she said, her voice a broken thing. "What is this?" The letter in my mother's hand was a confession, a raw spill of everything I felt for Sarah. Words I'd poured out in a moment of reckless courage, never meant for anyone but her. My throat closed as Diane's eyes, usually so steady, flickered with something I'd never seen. Fear. "Explain this, Ellie," she said, her voice low, like she was begging me to lie. I couldn't. The truth had been clawing at me for years, and now it was free, a wild thing I couldn't cage. "I love her, Mom," I said, my voice shaking but clear. "I love Sarah." The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. Diane's face crumpled, not in anger, but in a kind of grief, as if I'd died right there in front of her. She turned and left my room, the letter still in her hand, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, Sarah called, her voice frantic. Her parents had confronted her. Too. Someone had seen us at the creek, whispering, "Too close." Willow Creek was a spiderweb, one tug, and everyone knew. "They're locking me in," she said, her words choked with tears. "They're calling the camp tomorrow." My heart raced. We had to move faster. I told her to meet me at midnight, at the old barn on Miller's farm. We'd leave tonight. But Diane wasn't done with me. That afternoon, she sat me down in the living room, her face a mask of calm that scared me more than her anger. "This isn't you, Ellie," she said, her voice deliberate. "You're confused. We'll fix this."
Fix.
The word was a blade, and I felt it slice through me. She talked about counseling, about church, about saving my soul. I wanted to scream that I wasn't broken, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I nodded, my eyes on the floor, planning my escape. Clara was there, too, silent in the corner, her expression unreadable. I wanted to beg her to help, to say something, but her silence felt like betrayal. Later, when Diane left to run errands, Clara cornered me in the kitchen. "You're planning something, aren't you?" she asked, her voice soft but urgent. I froze, my hands gripping the counter. "Don't lie to me, Ellie. I've been where you are." Her words hit like a shockwave. "Been where I am?" Clara, with her leather jacket and defiant smirk, had always seemed untouchable, not like me, trapped, afraid. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then said, "I loved someone once. Someone I wasn't supposed to. It cost me everything." Her eyes held mine, and for the first time, I saw pain there, raw and unguarded. "Don't let them take her from you." I didn't know if I could trust her, but I was out of options. "We're leaving tonight," I admitted, my voice trembling. "Sarah's parents are sending her away. We have to go." Clara nodded, her jaw tight. "I'll help you," she said. "But you need to be careful. Diane's not the only one watching." That night, I slipped out of the house, my backpack heavy with clothes and the last of my savings. The air was cool, the town quiet except for the hum of crickets. I reached the barn just before midnight, my heart pounding as I waited for Sarah. She arrived, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. "They took my phone," she whispered, throwing her arms around me. I barely got out. We held each other, the world shrinking to just us, but the sound of a car engine in the distance snapped us back. It was Clara. She stepped out, her face grim. "Get in," she said, gesturing to her old pickup. "They're looking for you. Both of you." My stomach dropped. Diane must have found my empty room. Sarah's parents, too. We climbed into the truck, and Clara drove, her hands steady on the wheel. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice shaking.
DC, she said.
"I know place. You'll be safe there." The drive was a blur of dark roads and fear. Sarah's hand was in mine, her grip tight, but every headlight felt like a threat. Clara didn't speak much, but her presence was a lifeline. "Why are you doing this?" I asked her at one point, the question slipping out. She glanced at me in the rearview mirror, her eyes soft. "Because no one helped me when I needed it," she said. "And I won't let you lose what I did." We reached DC just before dawn, the city waking up in shades of gray and gold. Clara pulled up to a small house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that felt like it could swallow our secrets. "This is a friend's place," she said. "You can stay here for now. Lay low." Sarah and I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As we stepped out, Clara grabbed my arm. "Ellie," she said, her voice low, "your mom's not a bad person. She's just scared. Give her time." Inside, the house was small but warm, with mismatched furniture and books stacked on every surface. Sarah and I collapsed on a couch, our hands still tangled together. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But the relief was fragile. I knew Diane wouldn't stop looking for me, and Sarah's parents wouldn't give up either. We were safe but not free. That night, as Sarah slept beside me, I thought about Clara's words. My mother's fear, her rules, her love, they were all tangled together, a knot I didn't know how to untie. But Clara's story, her pain, her choice to help us, it gave me hope. Maybe love could win, even in a place like Willow Creek. Maybe it could change things. The DC house was a sanctuary, but it felt like borrowed time. Sarah and I spent our first day there whispering plans, mapping out a future that seemed both impossible and within reach. The city hummed outside, a world so different from Willow Creek, where nobody cared who held your hand. But the weight of what we'd left behind, my mother's grief, Sarah's parents' anger, hung over us like a storm cloud. Clara checked in that afternoon, bringing groceries and a burner phone. "Don't use your old numbers," she warned, her voice firm. "They'll trace you." She looked tired, her usual bravado softened by something heavier. I wanted to ask about her past, about the person she'd loved and lost, but the question stuck in my throat. Instead, I thanked her, my voice small. She just nodded, her eyes saying more than her words. Sarah was quieter than usual, her laughter replaced by a nervous edge. "What if they find us?" she asked that night, her head on my shoulder. I didn't have an answer, so I just held her, my fingers tracing circles on her back. The truth was I was terrified too. Running had been our only choice, but now what? We had no jobs, no IDs, just $200 left and Clara's friend's couch. Love had carried us this far, but it wouldn't pay the rent. The next day, Clara introduced us to her friend, Maya, the owner of the house. Maya was in her 40s, with warm brown eyes and a calm that put us at ease. "You're safe here," she said, her voice steady. "But you need a plan." She ran a small bookstore downtown and she offered us part-time work, under the table, no questions asked. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sarah's face lit up for the first time in days, and I felt a flicker of hope. We settled into a routine, shelving books by day, whispering dreams by night. The bookstore was a haven, filled with stories of people like us, queer, defiant, alive. Sarah found a novel about two women in love in the 1950s, and we read it together, our voices soft in the dark. But even in those quiet moments, I couldn't shake the feeling that Willow Creek was still reaching for us. It was a week later when Clara showed up, her face pale. "Your mom's hired someone," she said, her voice tight. "A private investigator. She's not letting this go, Ellie." My stomach twisted. Diane's love had always been fierce, but this felt like a hunt. Sarah's parents were involved, too, pooling resources to track us down. "They think you're in trouble," Clara said. "That I've corrupted you." Her voice broke on the last word, and I saw that same pain in her eyes, the one she'd hinted at before. "What do we do?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Clara hesitated, then said, "You could confront them. Tell them the truth, face to face. Or you keep running." The idea of facing Diane made my chest ache. I could still see her holding that letter, her world crumbling. But running forever wasn't a life, it was survival, and barely that. That night, Sarah and I talked until dawn. She wanted to fight, to stand up to her parents, to show them who she was. "I'm tired of hiding," she said, her eyes fierce. "I want to be with you, out in the open." Her courage made me love her more, but it also scared me. What if we fought and lost? What if they took her away? Clara had her own battles. She told us more that week, pieces of her story slipping out. She'd loved a woman, years ago, in Willow Creek. They'd been caught, and her family, my mother included, had turned on her. "Diane thought she was saving me," Clara said, her voice bitter. "She told me to choose, my family or her. I chose wrong." The weight of her regret was a warning, but also a spark. If Clara could help us now, maybe we could rewrite her ending, too. We decided to stay in DC, to build something real. Maya helped us get fake IDs, enough to rent a tiny apartment nearby. It was a risk, but so was everything else. The bookstore became our anchor, the work grounding us. Sarah's smile came back, brighter each day, and I started to believe we could make it. But Diane was closer than we thought. One evening, as we locked up the bookstore, I saw a man across the street, watching us. He was older, unremarkable, but his eyes lingered too long. My heart raced as I grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her inside. "He's one of them," I whispered, my voice shaking. Clara had warned us about investigators, people who blended in but never stopped looking. We were being hunted, and the net was tightening. That night, I called Clara from the burner phone. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice breaking. She was quiet for a long moment, then said, "You can't keep running, Ellie. You have to decide what you're fighting for." Her words echoed Sarah's, and I knew they were right. Love wasn't just stolen moments by a creek, it was standing up, even when it hurt. The man outside the bookstore wasn't a coincidence. Sarah and I spotted him again the next day, lingering near the apartment, his car parked just out of sight. Panic became our shadow, following us through every shift, every quiet moment. We stopped going out after dark, kept the curtains drawn, but the fear was relentless. "We can't live like this," Sarah said one night, her voice tight with frustration. She was right, but the alternative, facing our families, felt like walking into a storm. Clara came by with a plan. "There's a community center downtown," she said. "They help kids like you, runaways, queer kids, anyone who needs a way out. They've got lawyers, counselors, people who can protect you." It sounded like a lifeline, but also a risk. What if they couldn't help? What if they sent us back? Still, we agreed to meet with someone from the center, a woman named Rachel who Clara swore we could trust. Rachel was in her 30s, with a kind smile and a no-nonsense way about her. We met her at the community center, a bright space filled with flyers about pride events and legal aid. "You're not the first to run," she told us, her voice steady. "And you won't be the last. But you have rights, and we can help you use them." She talked about emancipation, about legal protections for queer youth, about building a case against forced conversion therapy. It was overwhelming, but for the first time, I felt like we weren't alone. Sarah was all in, her eyes bright with determination. "I want to fight," she said. "I want to tell them they can't control me." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. Fighting meant facing Diane, meant seeing that look in her eyes again. The one that said I'd broken her. I wasn't sure I was strong enough for that. Clara drove us back to the apartment, her silence heavier than usual. "You're doing the right thing," she said finally, her voice soft. "But it's gonna hurt, Ellie. Truth always does." I wanted to ask her more, about her past, about how she survived, but she changed the subject, asking about our jobs, our plans. I let it go, but her words stayed with me. Truth always does. The community center connected us with a lawyer, a sharp woman named Lena, who took our case pro bono. She explained our options. We could file for emancipation, which would give us legal independence, or we could seek a restraining order against our parents if they tried to force us into anything, like conversion camp. The words felt cold, clinical, but they were a shield. Lena warned us it wouldn't be easy. "Your families will fight back," she said. "They'll say they're protecting you. Be ready." We were. Or we thought we were. Sarah started writing a letter to her parents, not the kind I'd written to her, but a formal one, stating who she was and what she wanted. I tried to write one to Diane, but every word felt like a betrayal. How do you tell your mother you love her, but can't be what she wants? How do you ask for freedom when she thinks she's saving you? A week later, the investigator made his move. We were leaving the bookstore when he approached, his voice calm but firm. "Ellie Harper? Sarah Bennett." My heart stopped. He handed us an envelope, his face blank. "Your parents want to talk. They're worried." Inside were letters from Diane and Sarah's parents, pleading for us to come home, promising love, promising change. But between the lines, I saw the same old demands. "Come back, be fixed, be who we say you are." Sarah tore her letter in half, her hands shaking. "They don't get it," she said, tears in her eyes. "They'll never get it." I held her, my own letter unopened, burning in my pocket. That night, we called Lena, who told us to stay put. "Don't respond," she said. "Let me handle it." But doing nothing felt like surrender, and I was tired of feeling powerless. Clara suggested we go public, not to the whole world, but to the community center's network. They had a support group, a place where kids like us shared their stories. "Tell them who you are," Clara said. "Let them see you." The idea terrified me, but Sarah was ready. The next evening, we stood in a room of strangers, holding hands, and told our story. Willow Creek, the letters, the fear. The room was quiet, then warm, filled with nods and tears and hands reaching out. We weren't alone anymore. But Diane wasn't giving up. A few days later, Clara got a call from her. Furious, desperate. "She's coming to DC, Clara told me, her voice grim. "She knows you're here." My heart sank. I'd wanted to believe we could outrun her, but love doesn't let go that easily. Not even the kind that hurts. Sarah and I spent that night planning, not just for survival, but for a fight. We'd face Diane, face Sarah's parents, and we'd do it together. The news of Diane's arrival hit like a punch. I could still see her face, pale and shattered, holding my letter. Now she was coming to DC, not to understand but to reclaim me. Sarah's parents were with her, a united front, and the thought of facing them all made my knees weak. But Sarah's hand in mine was steady, her voice fierce. "We're not going back," she said.
"Not to that."
Clara arranged for us to meet them at the community center, neutral ground, with Rachel and Lena present. "They can't force you to do anything," Lena told us, her voice calm but firm. "You're both 18. You have rights."
Rights.
The word felt hollow against the weight of family, of love twisted into control. Still, we prepared, writing down what we wanted to say, practicing the words until they felt real. The day of the meeting, the air was thick with August heat, the kind that made everything feel heavier. Sarah and I walked into the community center, our hands clasped, Clara behind us like a quiet guard. Diane was already there, sitting stiffly beside Sarah's parents, her face a mask of resolve. Sarah's mom, Linda, looked like she hadn't slept in days, her eyes red and pleading. Her dad, Mark, just stared, his jaw tight. The room felt like it might crack under the tension. "Ellie," Diane said, her voice breaking as she stood. "Come home. Please." It wasn't a demand. Not yet, but I heard the edge in it. Sarah's hand tightened in mine, and I took a breath. "I'm not confused, Mom," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I love Sarah. This is who I am." The words landed like stones, and Diane flinched, her hand gripping the back of a chair. Linda spoke next, her voice sharp. "Sarah, this isn't you. You're sick. We can help you." Sarah's face hardened.
"I'm not sick," she said.
"I'm in love, and I'm done hiding." The room went silent, the kind of quiet that swallows everything. Mark stood, his face red. "You're coming home," he said, stepping toward Sarah. Rachel stepped in, her voice calm but firm. "She's an adult. You can't make her." The argument that followed was a storm, accusations, tears, pleas. Diane talked about God, about family, about my future. Linda begged Sarah to think of her siblings, her church. Mark just repeated, "This isn't right." I wanted to scream, to make them see us, but their eyes were locked on who they thought we should be. Clara stayed quiet, her gaze flickering between me and Diane, like she was waiting for something to break. Then Diane turned to Clara, her voice venomous. "This is your fault," she said. "You fill her head with this nonsense." Clara's face didn't change, but her eyes burned. "I didn't make Ellie who she is," she said. "You did. By never listening." The words hit Diane like a slap, and for a moment, I saw something shift in her. Doubt, maybe, or guilt. Rachel steered the conversation back, laying out our legal options. Emancipation was on the table, but so was dialogue, a chance to find common ground. "They love you," Rachel said to us, her voice gentle. "But love doesn't mean control." Diane's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw her waver. "I just want you to be happy," she whispered, tears spilling over. "But this I don't understand." Sarah spoke up, her voice clear. "Then try, Mom. Try to understand me." Linda shook her head, but Diane was quiet, her hands trembling. The meeting ended with no resolution, just a fragile agreement to talk again. As they left, Diane hugged me, her grip tight and desperate. "I'm not giving up on you," she said. I didn't know if that was a promise or a threat. That night, Sarah and I sat on our apartment's tiny balcony, the city lights stretching out below. "Do you think they'll ever get it?" she asked, her voice small. I didn't have an answer, but I held her close, the warmth of her against me enough for now. Clara stayed with us, her presence a quiet strength. "You did good today," she said. "You stood up. That's more than I ever did." The next week was a blur of work and worry. Lena filed papers, for us, a step toward legal independence. The community center became our second home, a place where we could be ourselves without fear. But Diane's words lingered, her love a weight I couldn't shake. I started writing to her again. Not a letter I'd send, but one I needed to write. For me, for the girl I was becoming. Then Clara dropped a bombshell. "I'm going back to Willow Creek," she said one evening, her voice steady but heavy. "I need to face Diane too. For me." I stared at her, a mix of fear and admiration. She was going back to the place that broke her, to fight for us, for herself. "Come with me," she said. "Both of you. One last time." Going back to Willow Creek felt like stepping into a lion's den, but Clara's resolve was contagious. "We don't run forever," she said, her voice firm. "We face them, or we'll always be looking over our shoulders." Sarah agreed, her jaw set, but I hesitated. The thought of seeing Diane again, of standing in the town that tried to erase us, made my chest tight. But I loved Sarah, and I trusted Clara. So we went. The drive back was quiet, the Virginia countryside rolling past in a blur of green and gold. Clara's truck smelled of coffee and leather, a strange comfort. Sarah held my hand, her thumb tracing small circles, a reminder we were in this together. What if they don't listen? I asked, my voice barely audible. Clara glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Then you've still told your truth, she said. That's enough. Willow Creek hadn't changed. The same church steeple, the same diner, the same whispers behind smiles. We stayed at Clara's house, a small rental on the edge of town, its walls bare but warm. Diane had agreed to meet us there, along with Sarah's parents, but the air felt charged, like a storm was coming. Clara had arranged for Rachel to join us, a neutral voice to keep things civil. The meeting was in Clara's living room, the furniture pushed back to make space for truth. Diane arrived first, her face pale but composed. Sarah's parents followed, Linda clutching a Bible, Mark's eyes hard. Rachel sat between us, her presence a quiet anchor. I spoke first, my voice shaking but clear. I'm not here to fight, I said. I just want you to see me, to see us. I gestured to Sarah, whose hand was in mine, steady as ever. Diane's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. I raised you to be good, she said, her voice breaking. I don't know how to do this. Her honesty cut deeper than her anger ever had. Sarah's mom was less yielding, her words sharp. This is a sin, Sarah. You know that. Sarah didn't flinch. Love isn't a sin, she said. Hate is. The room erupted, voices overlapping, Linda quoting scripture, Mark demanding Sarah come home, Diane pleading for me to reconsider. Clara, silent until now, stood up. Enough, she said, her voice like a gavel. You're not listening. You're losing them, because you won't hear them. She turned to Diane, her sister, her mirror, and her opposite. I lost everything because of you, she said, her voice raw. Don't make Ellie pay the same price. The room went still. Diane's face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw her see Clara, not as the rebel sister, but as someone who'd been hurt. What are you talking about? Diane whispered. Clara took a breath, then told her story. A woman named Anna, a love cut short by family, by fear, by Diane's own hand. You told me to choose, Clara said. And I did. I chose you, and I lost her. I won't let Ellie make that choice. Diane was silent, her hands trembling. Sarah's parents shifted, uncomfortable, but Linda's grip on her Bible loosened. Rachel stepped in, guiding us toward practical steps, counseling, mediation, time. You don't have to agree, she said, but you have to try to understand. Diane nodded, a small gesture, but it felt like a crack in a wall. That night, Sarah and I walked to the creek, our old hiding place. The willows were still there, whispering in the breeze. Do you think they'll change? Sarah asked, her voice soft. I thought of Diane's tears, Clara's courage. Maybe, I said. Maybe not, but we're not hiding anymore. She smiled, and under the stars, we kissed, the world ours for a moment. Clara stayed in Willow Creek, determined to rebuild something with Diane. Sarah and I returned to D.C., our apartment waiting, our lives taking shape. Lena's work was paying off, emancipation papers were moving forward, and the community center was helping us find better jobs. But the real victory was in us, in the way we held each other, unafraid. Diane called me a week later, her voice hesitant. I'm trying, Ellie, she said. I don't understand, but I'm trying. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. Sarah's parents were harder, their silence loud, but Sarah was unshaken. They'll come around, she said, her optimism a light I clung to. We were building a life, not just for us, but for the kids we'd met at the community center, for Clara, for everyone who'd been told their love was wrong. Willow Creek was behind us, but its lessons weren't. Love could hurt, but it could also heal. Back in D.C., the days took on a rhythm. Work at the bookstore, evenings with Sarah, planning a future that felt less like a dream and more like a promise. The apartment was small, the walls thin, but it was ours. We hung fairy lights on the balcony, a nod to the stars we'd kissed under in Willow Creek. Every day felt like a small victory, a step away from fear and towards something real. Clara called often, her voice lighter each time. She and Diane were talking, not just fighting. "She's reading," Clara told me one evening, a smile in her voice. "Books about people like us. She's trying, Ellie." I didn't know if Diane would ever fully accept me, but the fact that she was opening a book, questioning her own rules, was more than I'd hoped for. Clara was staying in Willow Creek, rebuilding her life, maybe even her own heart. She'd started volunteering at a local youth group, helping kids who reminded her of me, of herself. Sarah's parents were slower to move. Linda sent a letter, not an apology but a step. "I pray for you," she wrote, and Sarah laughed, not bitterly, but with a kind of hope. "She's praying," Sarah said, folding the letter. "That's something." Mark was silent, but Sarah didn't let it dim her. She was stronger than I'd ever been, her love a fire that burned through doubt. Lena finalized our emancipation papers, giving us legal freedom. It was a quiet moment, just signatures on a page, but it felt like cutting a chain. We celebrated with Maya at the bookstore, a bottle of cheap wine and laughter that filled the room. "Your family now," Maya said, her eyes warm. The community center had become that, too, a family of strangers who understood, who'd fought the same battles. One evening, Sarah and I went to a pride event at the community center, our first. The room was alive with color, with voices, with people who didn't hide. We danced, our hands tangled, our laughter loud. I thought of Willow Creek, of the girl who'd written a letter she never sent, and I felt a pang for her. But I wasn't her anymore. I was Ellie, in love, unafraid. Months later, Diane visited D.C. She didn't tell me she was coming, just showed up at the bookstore, her hands nervous, a book under her arm. It was one Clara had given her about queer families, about love beyond rules. "I'm still learning," she said, her voice soft. "But I want to know you, Ellie. The real you." We talked for hours, not just about Sarah, but about me, my dreams, my fears, my life. She listened, really listened, and when she hugged me goodbye, it felt like a bridge, fragile but real. Sarah and I kept building. We enrolled in community college, saved for a better apartment, dreamed of a day when we could marry, not just in secret but in light. Clara visited often, her stories of Willow Creek a mix of humor and hope. She'd started dating again, a woman from the youth group, and her smile was brighter than I'd ever seen. The scars of Willow Creek didn't vanish. There were still nights when I woke up, afraid Diane would change her mind, afraid Sarah's parents would try to pull her back. But those fears were smaller now, drowned out by the life we were making. Love wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, a fight, a promise we kept every day. One night, under those fairy lights, Sarah took my hand. "We did it," she said, her eyes shining. "We're here." I kissed her, the city humming around us, and I knew she was right. We'd run, we'd fought, we'd won. Not just for us, but for Clara, for Diane, for every kid in Willow Creek who felt like we did. Our love was a story, not of shame, but of courage, a story we'd tell for the rest of our lives.